Welcome back to the broadcast. We still have Honorable Jen, Member of Parliament, Naivasha, and we also have Fred Okango, Secretary General, Third Way Alliance, and now joining us, Anthony Maina, who's a political analyst. Karibu sana. And just before you came in, we were talking matters, elections, and whether Africa needs an election in the first place. That I did not ask, but I'm asking right now, based on how tight things get when we're getting into an election or that electioneering period, and just looking at the occurrences that played out in the United States that continue to play out up until now. What would you make of it briefly?
Probably what I would say is that we are now in a new era.
Yes.
An era which I would say is an era of information. The common man has access to all information because of the current platforms. We have the social medias, all the media outlets that we have.
Yeah.
It has become very tricky to ignore the common mwananchi, especially when they're making decisions in reference to elections and leadership, more so on governance. That is the kind of that's why we are seeing the kind of problem that we are seeing in the US. Now the public, the common mwananchi, has all the information. What used to happen behind the scene is now out in the open to the common man, and they're able to make their decision based on that. So if you look deep into the situation in the US right now, there has been a firm grip of the systems for years on the kind of government that the Americans have.
Yeah.
But right now, also with the incoming of someone who looks a bit liberal, Donald Trump, he has made it open and accessible to almost everyone, such that now you find people doing very critical things that you would not have expected there before.
True.
And that's the situation we are also facing even here in Kenya. It cannot be like before. It cannot be like the way it used to be during the era of Moi, Kenyatta or Kibaki. Things have really changed. People know what is going on and they are questioning. So we have to admit that there are dynamics. That's where we are. And we address the issue from that point.
Okay.
That's the only way we'll be able to deal with the situation.
All right, as we close down on this, Fred, I'm coming to you. And when we're talking about having youthful leaders, taking up the mantle, back then it was about the sword, like Mheshimiwa says, it was about the gun and all that. But times have changed, and we are in that era of technology and so much, and youths are actively involved and are aware, in comparison to what was back then. Why is it then that we should still speak of intolerance that, pushes these leaders to take up the mantle? Why should it be, a radical approach? Why should it be, an approach where blood has to be lost or has to be shed? And makes it even worse when you imagine that after all this, not so much happens in terms of leadership. And many have argued that there's a wind of change in Africa, that so much is happening within Africa in terms of change of governance and letting off the old guard. But reality is that even with the change that we witness today, some of these African countries do not enjoy what it is that they would look at and say that these are the fruits of liberation.
First of all, Linda, it's good to recognize that in Kenya particularly, the young people have got a responsibility.
Yeah.
And they have got a constitutional responsibility. The state has got a responsibility in Article 55 to ensure that they protect the young people, the youth, and also provide them with a space in leadership, political representation. And that is also following the Political Parties Act. However, the reason why they are now agitated, because the young people have been told you are the leaders of tomorrow. Then they changed and told us we are the leaders of today.
Yeah.
I think we are not. We are the leaders of now. And if you look at the population, and I want to take you back, in 2017 election, when we finished the election and we went for the post-analysis of the election with the IEBC, out of the 19 million voters, do you know that 53 of them were young people?
Yeah.
It means they would have easily elected one of their own as the president, as the MCA, as the governor, and the rest. Why didn't they do that? Because elections have been engineered to be for the old who have money and not for the young who have the ideas. This time, as you have said, the young people have just realized that they have the ideas. They control the social media space, and they can actually give a very big impact in the leadership. And that's why you see Bobby Wine in Uganda has made it difficult for Yoweri Kaguta to govern because he has got a multitude of young people behind him.
Yeah.
Now, when you go to Western world, the countries like United States, you realize that the Senate, if you watched, most of them are experienced old people who would want to be president at some point. When you go to the Congress, they're slightly younger age. However, those are democracies that have evolved over time. And the provision of services is to a certain level that the young people are now experts. They give their technical expert to the old.
Okay.
So they are not very keen in occupying the spaces. In Africa, the spaces are huge and they are occupied by the old. Who would want to sit there forever, disregarding the fact that the young have got their time now to lead. And for me, I think the young people who want to lead, the first thing they must do, they must get involved. You cannot lead without getting involved.
Yeah.
No one will elect you, no one will appoint you. You must get involved in politics because that is the start of leadership. Yes. Whether it is in charge, wherever it is, you must get involved. Lastly, I believe that even as we go into all these things, look at the situation in Kenya. Today, we are being told of a bigger population that is young. What is the government doing to ensure that these bigger population are prepared for leadership, are protected from exploitation, are put at a place where they can actually be very proud of this country? I want to believe they're doing something. However, there's more that can be done, and that's bring the agitation. If more that can be done is not done, then the young people will get agitated. Then they say, okay, fine, we are going to occupy these offices. And I want to assure you, in 2022, you're going to see a lot of young people getting into leadership or attempting to get into leadership because they feel their time is now, not today, not yesterday.
Can't beat them, join them. Mheshimiwa, we close down on this. They say that, again, some of these youngsters, when they get into parliament, when they get into leadership positions and they get the oldies, well, if they're not nurtured, then they are, pressured to a point whereby they now join the old talk of the oldies. What can we do to, provide nurturing, to create that space before it becomes a push that is triggered by agitation?
First and foremost, I would like to say that nobody now can lead without involving youth. I want to tell you that the youngest CDF chairman in the country is from Naivasha.
Nice.
Because those are the people now who are going to drive this country.
Right.
Secondly, the youth have also to take that responsibility. The youth have to know that, youth is not a qualification. You'll get where we are.
Yeah.
But you need to be responsible. You need to know why you are getting into leadership. And I'll tell you why. Our politics today, or the leadership we have in this country, is that the member of parliament, the MCA, is loaded with a lot of problems, very many problems.
Yeah.
So that it becomes very impatient when a youth gets to the office and every morning, every call that comes is a problem. It starts now derailing them because is this really what I got myself into? Because this is what it is. This is what it is because one, there is poverty. There are unstructured policies. We say this and we are doing this. So it gets distorting. So that people, you really do not know what you want to do. I will tell you that most of these youth, once they're elected, they put off the phone. Because every call that comes is a problem. But what do we do for our people so that we erode these problems? It's because we have to put the right policies and also implement. The implementation of our laws, just like he's saying, yes, there is a youth chapter or article in the Constitution. But what does that mean? Is it just a writing that is there, or is it something that needs to be implemented? People living with disability, what are you doing about it? Is it just there to be written? But youth have to shape up.
Yes.
Shape up in that this is where you are. You have been put there. Don't let the youth down. You have to stick there. We have put you there. Look after our affairs. Take care of us. Bring others with you.
Okay. Well, at least you've done well in Third Way Alliance and the people who support that. The others, we keep questioning whether indeed they have represented us as we would have expected. But that aside, now Ruto asks opposition to share blame for failure, probably reacting to what it is that Baba said. And he says that, government should be held responsible as it was elected. And here we are, we're having a conversation of the handshake, we're celebrating that. But then again, he says, amid calls for unity, it is important that we should have, all these other, political leaders or opposition leaders incorporated or associate with government to not only on matters, or when matters are rosy, but equally extensively, even when it is bad, or so to speak. What do you make of this statement? Is a genuine one, or it's just shots being fired?
What I believe is that all those are politicians, and in most cases, those are political statements. Each one of them trying to do the other, which is normal in a political environment. However, we must appreciate some of these things. You see, for a country to grow, or for there to be a good environment for these youths to benefit, for everything to progress, you need peace. That is critical. Yeah. When Uhuru and Raila came together and there was this handshake, I believe what they were strongly looking for was peace. They wanted peace so that they can create a healthy environment which will make it easy for the economy to grow. That is what we have all been looking for. So in whichever angle you want to look at it, handshake was very important for this country. Okay. We have been able to progress. However, we have had very many shortcomings ever since then. Some are contented, others are complaining because of politics. It's all right. We need to have more focus on what is going to benefit our people. I believe if the president, the deputy, and the Raila Odinga, if they were working together, the challenge that we are facing today, we could reduce them. Though we have been having several challenges ever since because of what has happened in the country, the economy would have actually expanded rapidly if the three would have worked together. And that's the perennial the problem that we have always been having. Every now and then, after every elections, we have a session of instability. The economy is disrupted. We are not unable to progress. We must start appreciating some of these acts because they are very important, and that is exactly what we need. The common man is not interested on the board who was at the top. I want to see my brother or my sister waking up in the morning, going to do his business from morning to evening. In the evening, he goes home with something small. He's able to afford the unga for the family. The following day, he goes back to work. And that is what we would want to see at every time when there is elections. Let us just be having that one day for the elections, then the following day, we have business as usual. Yeah. That way, this country is going to grow because we have been having this session of disruptions every now and then. There is disruption. Economy comes to a stall. We take some time before we put our things together. Then again, we start off. That's what we're trying to address. Right. Yes, which is very critical for the country.
Okay, intensity of this matter, Fred, is one that we cannot overlook because we all understand the role of government upon, being placed in power. And really, there has to be that one person that you will point a finger at if things go south. And now when we're starting to have a conversation where we want to have, everyone involved in just taking the blame or taking the glory when things go well, what does that mean? This statement could be as good as it looks politically and all that, but is it even realistic? Is it practical? Is it supposed to be so?
Linda, first of all, that statement is not correct, and I would correct it now. Okay. Because if you look at our constitutional framework, the real opposition leaders sit in the National Assembly, where Madam Jane Kiara sits. Those are the opposition. Because the framework that we have, the role of the National Assembly, as provided in Article 95, is one of them is to oversight state organs. In so doing, they do other things like allocation of funds to the both level of government and so on and so forth. There are quite a number. Now, when you pick opposition leaders in quotes, people who lost election, they're not in government, they are not in Senate, they are not sitting in the National Assembly. What is their role? They have no role. In fact, the real opposition in the Constitution of Kenya 2010 that we have today are the members of parliament.
Okay.
Those are the people that should oversight state organs. They are the people that do allocation of funds. They're the people that should stand. Because when you go into the National Assembly, you not only represent the interests of your constituency, you represent the national interest. And that's why in division of revenue, you divide revenue between two levels of government, the county and the national government. And you oversight those state officers. That is the law. Now, Ruto is a very smart politician. When he goes after the so-called opposition leaders, he's fighting them. Remember the other day he told them, you don't pick my calls. It's not that I'm going to ask you for votes. You could be asking me for your votes. I mean, it's political, as he said. So those are politics of the day. However, the real politics is that when you want to evaluate the performance of a government, you look at the three arms: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. To this extent, we can confidently say that the legislators have failed in equal measure, because there are certain aspects that they would have secured and pushed this country to the next level. They failed. The executive have equally failed in certain areas. And I'm using the word failure to mean challenges that they have experienced. And they can only do better. Unfortunately, they have got very little time. We cannot even today say that the pandemic is an issue that now has barred them from performing. I don't think so, because people are now deliberating issues virtually. They can still go and fix issues. There are certain policy decisions that are made. There are certain legislative aspects that they should pass. They can do that any day, any time. So for me, when you talk about opposition, the real opposition is in parliament. And if Ruto says that the opposition share the blame, I agree with him. The parliament share the blame.
But you share the blame, Mheshimiwa. The 12th parliament has largely been blamed for probably not being as active as we would have expected, probably not being so instrumental in addressing issues. And some have placed the blame squarely on the handshake. Is it an unfair statement?
First and foremost, let me talk about the handshake. We need to ask ourselves, was it genuine? It's good for the country, and it's good for business. It's good for everybody. When the country is calm, like my friend here, Anthony, has put, we all want peace. Everybody wants peace in this country. But Linda, if we've been working together, and Fred has been out there, and I want to bring him in, I don't throw you away. Because it's
has someone been thrown away?
It's not working. I'm telling you, because I've been there. If we want to increase the crowd, is that I'll bring him and keep you here, so that now we are talking the same language. So when you say that somebody is smart, it's because you can see a little bit far. It was this really handshake genuine? What drove? If we are not discussing with you how we're going to incorporate him, I'm talking to him and you are not aware, or maybe we have not agreed, then I'm being selfish.
Sometimes we overlook this. Let's go back, let's take back the hands of time, and let's acknowledge that even before the handshake, things were not in order within the Jubilee.
I don't want to say that, because I cannot attest to that. I'll tell you.
It is in black and white. I was covering all this, and we kept asking the president and the deputy president, kindly put your house in order. Is everything okay? And they kept saying nothing is wrong.
It was the process of getting to the greeting. Because when you want the handshake, you don't just wake up and I call
and say, oh, it's a handshake.
So it's been there. So if it is you I want to work with, then I've got to let this one a bit loose.
All right.
So this, I think, and like he says, we're supposed to be the oversight. Sometimes this euphoria, party euphoria, is a big problem. Because I'll tell you that what he says, and we have been in the same camp, I'm likely to accept or to agree, even though it's not sitting very comfortable with you. But it is we have been in the same trail. we have seen laws that have not been really critically looked at being passed because they are from the government, and a government MP and the one who fought to bring it to power. So maybe I'll not be very critical. So what has happened now is that, we don't have an opposition, so to speak, in Parliament. So as to whether Parliament can be opposition, that is also something that
I'm surprised that the gentlemen are just listening to this and they're not questioning anything. And Parliament itself is seated here, and we're just going to listen to that statement and say it is okay and it is all good.
That's the way it is. Let me tell you. Look at this by-election that happened the other day. Just the other day. In my constituency, we had a by-election in one of the wards. And somebody from a funny party won, because we are not fighting for Jubilee, because I don't feel I belong to Jubilee. One, I have been sitting there, fought for this government, put it in power, and all of a sudden, because of the handshake, they feel that Jane should not sit in this committee because we need to bring this person. So everything is jumbled up in Parliament. It is everyone for their own self and God for us all. So in essence, there is no opposition in Parliament, and everybody is government, and those who don't feel government or who are assumed not to be in government are depleted. Their committee position.
And such is what has informed probably the feel of a distaste or in matters BBI on a few people who are opposing the document. And it is unfortunate to even note that probably the document could be carrying something that is good for the people of Kenya, but just because you feel like you've been pushed away with the two, or just because you feel like, your interests have not been incorporated, then officially it renders the document, useless. I do not know what you stand for.
My take on BBI is very simple. When we passed the 2010 Constitution, yes, we were said that 20% needed to be looked at later. We passed the 80% as we work
on the
20% later. But was this thing ever audited? Did we know what is it that we wanted now? The 20%, what was it? What was the 20%? Is the 20% that we were supposed to take care of or to look at, is it adding MPs so that they are over 600? Was it the 20%? Anybody who wanted to look at the Constitution or to amend the Constitution, you needed to come out open. You say, now, look, let's go through this, let's audit this Constitution, so that we know what it is that will benefit us as Kenyans. But once you bring a document and we don't know, and you tell us that is the 20%, surely that one you can.
But whose role is it for one to get to know the 20% that we're talking about, and what it is that is being brought?
That's what I'm saying. There needed to be conversation. Now let's look at this thing. Make it a national conversation.
Which has not been the case?
Which has not happened.
Okay, gentlemen.
Yes, I would want something especially more on the BBI issue. Because I have tried to go through the document and see what exactly we are trying to do. We must acknowledge this one thing. For instance, if I would give the example of what is happening in the US today, is a challenge that I have not faced before. It has not happened. That one calls for, if people are intelligent enough, if they are wise enough, and they mind about their country, those people are going to sit down, look at the situation that they have gone through, and to prevent such a thing from occurring in the future, they will be doing the reviews that will face the challenge. We address the challenge that they are facing today. That is the same thing that is happening here in Kenya. When you look at the BBI, what is happening now? I know from where I come from, the document is not very popular now. But I still believe the reason as to why it is not popular is because people have not yet taken time to sit down and analyze what is within the document. We have had a challenge from time to time. Every time we have elections, there is a session of instability in this country. That's a main challenge that we should be focusing on, we as leaders in this country. We need to be addressing that, and that's critical. I know there are issues within the BBI. We have the devolution, increasing the allocations, representation, all those issues. But I believe that the bottom line is to ensure that whenever we have any form of election, there is stability from that point onwards. What is wrong with there having a situation where Whenever there is campaigns going on, we have a team that is working together from all over the country. We have the north, the south, the east, the west, and the central represented in that kind of an arrangement. That is going to neutralize the kind of polarization that we always experience whenever there's elections. And that is what we are looking for. Once we address that issue, those other issues, as Mheshimiwa is saying, the conflict, hiyo mvurutano yenye iko, those issues will be addressed at the boardroom. Mkika huko Nairobi, nyinyi tutueni hiyo mambo yenu huko kwa boardroom. We are okay. But at such a time, on the ground, we know that the common man is continuing with his business as usual. And especially from where I come from, it is very important that you try to seek what is it that is there in this thing. When you have that kind of representation all over the country, we know very well that whenever there is conflict, Madam Jin here comes from Rift Valley, where we usually have conflict every now and then. We usually have conflicts in Nairobi, in Mombasa, in Kisumu. Whenever there is that conflict, it is because of that feeling where you feel that because one of us or one from Central Kenya is the president, then all the Kikuus are in power, which is a perception that we need to deal with. We need to deal with that kind of a perception such that the regions feels represented. If that perception is that what is causing the violence in this country or in the recession of instability, then we should be willing to address that issue so that the common man benefits and this country progresses. That's what we are looking for. We want to see a growing economy for everyone. Yes.
Linda, constitution making processes are negotiated processes all over the world. It's not mine and mine, it's ours. And if you look at right from all the initiative from Okoa Kenya, the Punguza Mizigo that we brought, and now what's going on, BBI, there are some element of consultation in them, okay? But again, he has mentioned of the popularity of the document where it comes from. I think the only way to measure the popularity of a document is through scientific research. And one is going to be released today at 10. So we wait for that. We will not, I don't think it is fair to listen to an individual who sits in a bar and then says this is a popular document or not. Number two, I want to plead with Madam Jane Kiara Mheshimiwa. The women of this country are suitable, competent, and capable. That means they can take over position of leadership. In fact, I would love to see a female president in 2022 because it has never happened. I would love to see over 24 female governors. Now look, how do we achieve that if we don't fix the issue that is unleveling the playground for women? Historical injustices meted against the women has made it difficult for them to ascend to position of leadership, not only elective, even appointive. So this is what I'm saying. If you look at the proposals that are now going to ensure that women arrive there, they are very cogent proposals, and I agree. And that's what we have been saying in Punguza Mizigo, even us. Women of this country, to achieve a constitutional principle of 2/3, not more than 2/3 of the same gender shall occupy this elective position, we must amend this constitution. That is that must happen. And because we have seen in parliament, there's no woman who has struggled so much to even table a bill that will ensure that they are included or more of them are there. I think there's one with Madam Sholei. But if you look at the initial attempt, it was tabled by Duale, government bill, which collapsed. Why did it collapse? Because their male counterparts didn't want it to pass. Historical injustices.
What are the likelihoods and what is incorporated?
So what I'm saying, the only sure route to achieving 2/3 is a constitutional amendment. And we make it clear that in doing so, then women must be included from the party list. You understand? Now, people have argued and say, we are likely to have 600, some have called it double-decker. But I want to tell Kenyans, we are talking about Punguza Mizigo. But you know what? If you want to lower the burden with the certain proposal that the Kenyans have proposed today in the BBI, then you must elect women. Elect women. Our party today has fielded candidates in this by-election. And I want to give an example in London Ward. We are going to have the youngest MCA, Rebecca Gilo, the youngest, 25 years old, a woman. Listen, political parties must make it deliberate to ensure that women are given space to go and compete. And even if they compete and don't win, they must be encouraged to compete and win.
Yeah.
That is number one. Number two, constitutional amendment must make Kenyans fair and equal. In this country, we are not equal. We are not. The education that probably my child gets in Nairobi is not the education that a child gets in Turkana or Kasipul, Kabondo, where I come from.
Yeah.
Why? Because of resources. And now we are saying to make people equal and abide by the provisions of Article 10, national values and ethos, it means we must start measuring development bottoms up.
Okay.
And we say the provision of services must start at the ward, and you make the ward the primary unit of accelerated development. So you take resources to the people first down there, so that you can start seeing roads in the village. You see a modern school in the village. You see a hospital in the village. You see a tarmac road in the village.
All this was
If
bound
you
to
don't
happen
do that,
even with the 2010
No.
That
It was not
it's not.
deliberate. It was not deliberate.
Okay.
The money, at least 15%, is going to the county, ends at the county headquarters. I have traveled all over this country, and when you go to county headquarters, very big building, nice, welcoming you. Go to the next village,
It is
nothing.
different. Yes.
That's what I'm saying. So that we have that, we must now create a ward development fund that is for purposes of development expenditure at the ward level. That is what we are saying. And that way, you can now start saying, okay, fine, these at least 5% of the county revenue that is going for the development is meant for this ward, and the MCA provide the developmental needs of that ward. That is being deliberate.
We've not
As
met
it is
the
now,
15%
it is vague.
over. We've not met that, evidently.
No.
Right.
We are actually, if you look at it keenly, we have gone up to 35, 31%, 32%.
Which is-
but we are
which has
saying
been a
that the
roller
constitutional
coaster.
wording is saying at least. At least.
Yes.
So it can even be 100.
Yes.
Now, the wording is at least 35. I want to be a mathematician
That is
here.
categorical.
So when
It
you are
has to
saying,
be.
if at least 15 is over 35 or over 35, what would be the at least of 35?
It has
That's,
to be.
that's the question I'm putting.
All right.
So for me, it's not about which document, because people have got a problem with the word BBI. But me, I'm a proponent of constitutional amendment. And if you're a proponent of constitutional amendment, it must benefit the majority. So the majority that I'm speaking for today on this platform are the Kenyans. Have Kenyans benefited from the 2010 constitution? Yes. But can they benefit more? Yes.
Okay.
What do you do for Kenyans to benefit more? Look at the gray areas. 3 principles. Number 1, the principle of fair representation based on the equality of vote. There are areas that are bigger and they need representation. Number 3, the principle of not more than 2/3.
You can come in, we should be able to challenge
Not
that,
more than
yeah?
2/3 of the same gender shall occupy the same position, elective or appointed. It is a Bill of Rights in Article 27. The last principle is the principle of equality. So for me, I look at all these things and say, wait a minute, are there issues that Honorable Jen Kiara and the team in Parliament can do immediately? Yes. Amend the Political Parties Act and ensure that there is incentive for political parties that front women and young people.
Okay.
You can do it even this afternoon.
All right.
Are there issues that will demand people to go to the ballot through a popular vote in referendum? Yes. What are they? The issues that are in 255. Issues to do with the devolution. Issues to do with the structure of parliament. Issues to do with the Bill of Rights. That one can be done at a later time in the referendum. That is my issue. So for me, when I look at all these proposals, they are cogent proposals.
Yeah.
And how do we do them? We must involve everyone. And that is what the proponents of the Constitutional Amendment have done, involving everyone. I listened to the Deputy President speak as I finish. And he said, BBI is another thing, and there are people helping the President on that line. Him as an assistant is also helping in other lines. I agree with him, because he's a principal assistant. But what he's forgetting, if you are a principal assistant, your principal boss can ask you to do any other to help. I'm not sure if the president will ask him to help him in BBI, but I'm confident that president said at Bomas that he was involved.
He was involved. But he feels like what it is that he proposes has not been incorporated, and so the efforts are...
You know, the greatest winner.
Yes.
Let's talk about the greatest winner.
Should be the common.
William Ruto, Dr. William Ruto made a very cogent proposal at Bomas, and he said, look, this is what I think. All those that he asked for, I saw them in the BBI 3 that people are talking about now.
Yeah.
So he's the greatest winner.
Okay,
so
so
ordinarily, I think Uhuru would expect him to support the document because now that his demands and Hustler's demands have been met in the famous Article 11. You know?
That is pretty much huge a conversation that we can start right now and maybe not even be able to extensively go through it because of time. And yes, it is the reality on ground. I don't know, well, probably convinced enough to a point where you cannot challenge that or you'd want to challenge that in any way as we cross over to the situations that we experience in the country. And Fred, reality is that in as much as it's a beautiful document, some of these things, that politically we acknowledge that at some point in time, the price of unga almost costed President Uhuru Kenyatta, the elections and all that. So technically, the events of the day in the country could equally cost this beautiful document, as said by, Fred. And when I'm talking about that, I'm referring to the situation on matters health, to the difficult times that Kenyans continue to grapple with. And, they get to a point whereby they say, I do not even want to look at that document because I feel like, what is an immediate need is not being met. Look at what is happening in the health sector.
Let me just continue from where Fred left.
Yes.
That in the county assembly, we have the 2/3 gender rule met.
Has never
It
met?
is there.
Okay.
In the county assemblies, it was outright that those nominations had to be made. Those who sat and didn't do the same for the National Assembly or the Senate, maybe National Assembly. I think that is the area that we need to look at. Because bringing it tomorrow and the day after and the results are the same, it's because there is no political will.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the leaders of political parties, and this time I want to say President Uhuru and Raila Odinga, leading ODM or NASA and Jubilee. If they whip their members when we are debating that 2/3 gender rule and tell them, look, this thing is in the constitution, we have to do it. But they don't do it because there is no political will, really.
Okay.
And if it is going to be passed in parliament, it will stay forever. But why doesn't it work like it works in the county assemblies?
Yeah.
Let me talk about this ward fund.
Okay.
Ward fund. We have a government, a county government, that can pass that bill. So that money, there are counties that have done that. Yeah. So there is already money. Maybe if it is more, then they get more. There are counties that have got past that bill.
In Gishu,
so that there is ward money.
Yeah.
So don't beautify this BBI. I want us to go through it and say, this one can be done by the ministry, is a policy. This one can be executive order. This one has to be done through the parliament. This is legislative.
Which they have done.
No. This is what we need to do, because you don't escort what your document was intended to with very beautiful things so that we pass it. We want to be sincere with ourselves.
But
you commit.
Mheshimiwa, I agree with you. The only challenge is when you talk about the Ward Development Fund, there are certain areas like counties. Assuming the governor is not in good political terms with MC of Ward B, and when allocating the funds for the development of the wards, chances are very high that he or she might neglect that. Yeah. But now, in the constitution, it is guaranteed. No, whether you don't like me or you don't like Linda as the MCA, you must give it. And you must give it to the extent that is required by the law, that percentage, So that is why we are saying all these things can be done. But what is the secure way of ensuring that the people of Kenya enjoy them irrespective of their political affiliation, religion, and whatever? That is amending the constitution and putting it as a constitutional requirement.
Okay. Fred, for a ward fund, I don't see an MCA who will sit back. They will pass it. If they pass it, it's a bill in their county assembly. Yes. Then I don't know how the governor would deny it. It's a bill, it has been passed.
Okay.
I think we need to look at, so that to give our brother chance. There's what we called Ward Development Fund Act, County Development Fund Act. That act will now give us guideline, formulation on how to disburse the funds, how to pass it, what the MCA need to do in the county assembly, how to identify those developmental needs. I think at that level, Honorable John Kiara and team will look at it and guide the country.
Mechanisms of how to implement some of these clauses that are within the BBI, if at all they are to sail through, things that have been put, at the level of, question marks and all that. So this including, or this amongst these particular issues. For instance, just how well then will we be sure that these monies are going to get to the counties today? All these issues that we are facing at the level of the health sector, the governors would argue simply because money is not at the counties or money is not reaching the counties, or they will tell you, the Council of Governors the other day speaking of how about in 3 months, the workers of the county have not been paid and all that. So even as we debate of a brighter future, it is only fair that we consider what it is that we have now, what it is that we have in the past. How realistic can it get?
Thanks, Malinda. I would want to add on what they have said here, my colleagues. We appear to be listing the issues in a BBI and debating whether they are okay or not okay. Mm-hmm. And we are almost in a consensus that almost everything that is there is okay. It appears everyone is in agreement. These are good things. Why then? Why don't you just try to sit down and try to sum out that one thing that is negative? Mm-hmm. We deal with that negative thing, that which is negating all the gains that have been made by the current constitution. Mm-hmm. If there is such a thing, we work on it, then as long as it's benefiting all of us and it is good for the country, let's just have it, move on. That is one way of addressing the contentious issues, mm-hmm. that contentious debate. The other issue about the governance, I think you mentioned about the health issues that I want to come in. I think we have had that same problem, not just with the health of issues. It's a problem with almost all the labor organizations in this country. Every now and then, today we are having health. After the issues are sorted, another group is going to come up, bring their issues. After that one, another one is going to come up. What we are getting from this kind of a thing is that there is a problem that we need to address. There is a problem that is causing the unrest in the labor market, that every now and then these organizations have now turned to be, do I call them to have a political, to take things on a political angle. Yeah. And they want to put pressure on the government, and then because the government is worried politically that if we do this, we are going to lose politically, or this is going to happen, the government has never been firm. Because I strongly feel that what we need is a policy, making it very clear. If you are a civil servant, these are the remunerations. This is how you are going to be remunerated. Mm-hmm. If it is in the health sector, and we make it a law. The moment you come out and you start agitating for better terms and everything, we just go back to the law, and we make it very clear that this is what the policy says, we are going to stick to this. And if you go against this, then you are committing a crime. Mm-hmm. You should be charged. So that we create a situation of stability in the sector. It is very unfortunate that right now we are talking of the health sector being on strike, on a go-through. Mm-hmm. Issues dealing with the lives. Yet we have a government in place. What's the government doing? Yes, we know we are constrained at the moment because of the kind of crisis that we have been going through, the economic crisis coming from the COVID issue. But we need to get to the root of this problem. Let there be a policy formulated. Madam Jane is here, she's in Parliament. Let there be a policy, laws passed to ensure that this thing comes to an end once and for all. The government, that's why we usually have the government in place to address those issues. Because if you don't do that, we will never be able to deal with the issues of the labor issues.
All right, we close that. And in about 12 minutes or so, the twists and turns in the Nairobi gubernatorial position. We start with you, Madam Jane, and here we are. We're being treated to so much, Fred's party was excited because they were hoping that, in February, there'll be somewhere, the race or in the race, or so to speak, but
it's not going to end anytime soon.
Okay.
And I think I found Fred alluding to the fact that this lady who is supposed to be sworn in, or people are saying that she had been nominated, fronted by Governor Sonko. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, Sonko was not in the office by a court order.
Yes.
So he doesn't perform at that point. He doesn't perform any gubernatorial duties, which is that one. That is one of them. So was it right to do it?
Yeah.
It's just because he thought now things could be working differently.
Yeah.
Then he hurriedly picked a name. So somebody went to court. Now I hear this person has withdrawn.
Yes.
Now if he has withdrawn, do we know why he withdrew? Do we know who told him to withdraw?
Yeah.
Do we know what the government want with Nairobi being the capital city? I think these twists are going to be there. And do we know that whether that is why Governor Sonko never wanted a deputy governor all this time? I think it is so messy, but I believe of course there are laws that they're going to look at. But for now, if you ask me, they need that election. Well, it's going to be very chaotic. That one I must tell you.
Yes.
People are not prepared. There's going to be a lot of wrestling. You never know, somebody would want to leave their rural home and come and buy Nairobi
Yes.
because this is where power is.
Yeah.
But as and when it's going to happen, now it's going to drag
A lot of things.
because there are a lot of interests in Nairobi.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that is why the president put the NMS. Because again, Nairobi, you cannot just let go. Things were going haywire.
Right.
But then again, this NMS, where it sits, well, I believe, okay, there were those agreements that were signed. And later, Sonko tells us he was coerced to do it. What is it? What is it? Let me not talk about Nairobi because I'm rural. But it's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy. And interesting is to notice that the majority of people have hosted have argued that probably Nairobi is really not ready for an election. If there's a way, and sad to speak is that, you know, it is well enshrined in the constitution of what should be done, but there's still a few individuals who would sort of feel like, you know, if there's a way that you can save the Nairobians from that election, please proceed and save them from that. And Fred, for lack of a better word, or really not really lack of a better word, for, you know, just to trigger this, you as Third Way Alliance decided that they would also treat us to more drama, or so to speak, how the Nairobians looked at it, you know, and you can imagine how all this trended. They affronted Miguna.
Linda, I'll tell you here, without fear of contradiction, that if elections are called today for Nairobi gubernatorial by-election, General Miguna will be the governor. I can tell you that without a doubt. How we'll arrive there, we can talk in another show.
Yes.
But I want to talk about the issues that are happening currently.
Nairobi.
When Sonko was barred from accessing office by the courts, he was administratively incapacitated. And what is the office of the governor? The office of the governor is not the city hall building. It's the functions. And that's what that's the law, is the function that comes with it. And if you are administratively incapacitated, then you cannot do any constitutional duty as pertaining to that office. And therefore, the nomination of Anne Kananu was illegal. And I remember there's a letter, he revoked that nomination. Number two, assuming they bring in Anne Kananu as a DG for vetting. Who is she going to deputize? Because they are bringing her back as a DG. Who is she going to deputize?
As the governor.
That's question one. Question two, when they bring her, they vet her. Who is going to appoint her? Because she must be appointed by the governor. There is no governor. The person that was there who would have otherwise appointed her has since left. Number three, assuming that we are going to have an election on 18th as gazetted by IEBC, then you bring Anne Kananu as a DG. The incoming governor will come with a DG. What is the role of Anne Kananu? I'm just giving you facts. The last one. The issue of Anne Kananu has been overtaken by events as contemplated in Article 185, Subarticle 2, Subarticle 5, Article 182, Subarticle 5. The moment the speaker is sworn in as an acting governor, the only thing we contemplate is a by-election, which must happen within 60 days, because by the time you arrive as speaker acting, there was no DG. The law does not work in retrospective. You cannot go back. You are contemplating the past. And therefore, if they proceed and do what they are doing, it will be the biggest illegality in the history of politics.
Okay.
And I can tell you, people will challenge it in court. You know. Lastly, I think that we have a lot of challenges in Nairobi City County. Those challenges are challenges of leadership. And if you notice, the transfer of powers and functions that were done through Article 97 was as a result of failure to deliver certain services. So again, are you saying that when we have a governor that is now able to deliver, then we are going to do away with the NMS? Because now we have a governor that can deliver. You know? Because the Constitution says that if there are functions that can be better performed in another level of government, then they shall be transferred through an agreement. The transfer of deeds talks of 2 years.
Right. And we're almost...
Okay?
Right.
So if you look at it keenly, in my view, and as an interested party that has fielded a candidate in the name of Miguna, I think the surest way to comply with the provisions of Article 182 when a vacancy arises is to go for an election. Whether that governor is going to be there for 10 months, let's comply with the Constitution. But I know, if you look at the 3 court cases, there's one for Kananu, which has now the petition is withdrawn. There's one for Sonko, Governor Sonko, which is challenging his impeachment. And then there's one where former DG, Polka Pigade, is interested party.
And also that one, why are you overlooking this one of Waitito? It's also a court case that revolves around.
Well,
so 4.
There are 4. Well, so for me, there are a lot of issues. But the legal facts around it is that when a DG acts as a governor, that DG must be substantive. By the time Sonko was going home, we didn't have a substantive DG. And therefore it prompted us to move to the next level of having the speaker. And the law says speaker will act within 60 days pending an election. What Kenyans are waiting to see, and particularly Nairobians today, is an election on 18th where Governor Miguna is going to win by mid-morning, and then we swear him in.
All right, and then you lose the enemies. That's why sometimes I fear bringing him on board, because he will just sit. He blows his trumpet and he blows it.
What is really happening in Nairobi? As she said, it's a very complex. We have a very complex situation here. Actually, some of it is a result of the judicial precedents. We have had other impeachments in the past. We have had other events following the impeachment, like the case of Kiambu and other places. Right now, we have an acting governor, not as a substantive governor. He's an acting governor who is only supposed to hold office for only 60 days. After 60 days, the time lapses. What is going to happen? The court has already ruled or has already put an injunction that the IBC should not continue with the elections until that case is heard and determined, which means that one may even go beyond the 60 days. What is likely to happen? If you look at it, this is one issue.
In that scenario,
When?
60 days are over.
Yes.
Because
That's
we
why
cannot
I'm
hold an
saying this is
election.
an issue that is subject to judicial interpretation. It's an issue that should be taken to court. Let there be an interpretation. We have one clear way forward by the Supreme Court. They tell us in such a situation, this is the only way, something that cannot be challenged in a lower court. That's the only way to go about it. Otherwise, it's in a mess. Now we are going to have the said DG being vetted. After that one, I am sure someone is going to court, will go to court, and will stop her from being sworn in. Yes.
The other thing
are going to come.
Freddy will go to court.
Any Kenyan is free to go to court. I agree with what you're saying. The other thing that I see happening, you see, for now, the court has thrown them under the bus. In fact, by withdrawing, allowing that matter withdrawn, is throwing under the bus to cause chaos. So they'll come in, the MCAs will be excited to vet her, but they're forgetting that they're vetting somebody who is illegally allowed back. Then what will happen? The court can also decide on the issue of election to extend, to order IBC to give a fresh date. And you know what that means? It eats in the 15 months. So who would want to be a governor of Nairobi for 3 months, 5 months? So that's the question we're asking. And if you look at it, there are so many ways of killing this rat. But I can assure them that if they want Kenyans to believe, if they want the people in Nairobi to have governance and to enjoy the beautiful city under the sun, then let them comply with the provisions of Article 182, allow people to go to vote. People have come out. People want, candidates are there. IBC has gazetted the date. They have given the returning officers, let's go for an election. It's a competition.
And surprisingly, if I may add, surprisingly that was happening now, if you go to the ground, you realize that there is that feeling, that people are so much tired with the regime, the government, or the political class. As he said, if you have someone who is very rebellious or against the government, coming in, someone like Miguna, you would be surprised to find the masses, all of them, turning to such a kind of a direction.
Well,
and I'm sure the government is worried and doesn't want the election to proceed.
I do not know what it is that Fred has done to you, but all the same, it is well and good. Thank you.
Miguna is just an example, but it is a likely scenario.
But look at the candidate.
Which I know, the government.
But remember, Sonko is also trying to argue his case, and he would stand a chance, and he is the darling of the people, so to speak. Oh,
we
what
wish
it
him
is
well.
that we certainly wish him well, as much as we're wishing Miguna. And Mheshimiwa asked, is he even part and parcel?
Mheshimiwa declared she's from Mashinani. She's doing
No, all right, okay. Thank you.
She's a visitor.
Parliament is in Nairobi.
All right,
At least I have a hub here. I have a hub here.
Yes, Honorable Jen Kihara, Member of Parliament, Naivasha, Fred Okango, Secretary General, Pathway Alliance, and lastly, Anthony Minor, political analyst. Thank you so much. We close it at that. As we cross over to Matters Entertainment, Halisi, the band in the house. You do not want to miss out on that.